In terms of the counsel, you've counseled many, and many are not always publicized, but in the case of one young man who's sitting next to you today, it was unavoidable there was going to be publicity about it. I'd like to bring Michael Vick up at this moment. We need another microphone as well. And I've actually known Michael living in Atlanta ever since he came into the league, and he's always been somebody I've liked quite a bit. But at the same time, Tony, tell us, and everybody knows Michael's story, so we don't have to go into detail there, but just tell us how you got personally involved with Michael.
Well, again, it's funny how the Lord works. We had met each other for the first time over in Japan. About 6 years ago, we played the Falcons.
I was there.
In a preseason game. We're publicizing the event, going to different press conferences, and we just kind of talked about what we like to do, and we both like to fish, and we always talked about getting back here to the States and going on a fishing trip, and just because of schedule, it never really happened. But his attorney, Michael's attorney, is from Lauren's hometown, and when Michael was at the end of his stay in Leavenworth, he said, you know, I'd really like to put him together with someone who could help him as we're going forward. And he got in touch with me, and I went out to visit Michael in Leavenworth, Kansas, and we spent about 3 hours together that first afternoon, and our friendship just blossomed from there.
I got a real quick question, a follow-up on that. So you go to Leavenworth, federal prison, and you spend 3 hours. I got a feeling you didn't talk a lot about football.
No, we really didn't, and that's kind of what we'd like to share today. We said it was a little bit of a private deal, but I asked Mike some questions, and I was really intrigued with the responses. And if you remember, the first question I asked you was not about what had happened, but where you wanted to go from here.
Pick it up, Mike.
And that was the first question, and it kind of shocked me because, you know, our conversation started off with, you know, just a question that I didn't expect. But, you know, my response was, you know, I wanted to come back out and redeem myself and do whatever I could to, you know, help as many kids and be an ambassador in the community and do humanitarian work and, you know, just try to, you know, do things this time around that I didn't do before.
You know, it's interesting because I'm sure many of you have young people out there, and Michael's old enough or young enough to be my son. And, you know, to think you're thrust into a spotlight, and then you're thrust into that, just a situation that nobody would ever want to be in. And then all of a sudden to have to all of a sudden say, okay, now I got to restore myself. You're putting a heavy burden on yourself. I mean, you just got to put together the pieces of your life back together one by one. What was that process for you before you could actually get into the community and accomplish the things that you want to accomplish?
Well, first off, I think everything happens for a reason. A lot of things I was doing in my life, you know, pre-incarceration, it was predominantly all about me. And after, you know, my situation happened and post-incarceration, I just sat and thought about, you know, what I wanted to do moving forward. I knew it was going to be a challenge. You know, I knew I had the fortitude to come out and do it, and it was all about doing it and implementing that into my lifestyle.
If you can recollect, what are the maybe bullet points, like we like to call in my business, key things that Tony either advised you or told you that kind of put you on the path that you're on right now?
Well, Tony told me, you know, don't be bitter. You know, don't feel like you have to, you know, go out and try to insult anyone or play a get-back game. You know, have faith, believe in what you believe, and go out and make it happen. Do everything that you say you're going to do. Be a man about your word and make things happen when you're supposed to.
Tony, what changes have you seen in Michael that are just very evident to you?
Well, the one thing, you know, a lot of people ask me, I was one of the few people that was allowed to go in there and visit. And of course, coaches and general managers and everybody calling and saying, what did you see? What did you think? Is he really remorseful? And you can never tell that, but I did know that he wanted to come out and make a difference. And that's what I saw right away. And one of the questions I asked Michael, if you remember, is, you know, what was the toughest thing about being in there? And you remember what you told me then?
The toughest thing about being in prison to my recollection of what I told you was being away from my kids and not being able to get back the 18 months that I lost in their lives. And they was devastated about what happened. I was devastated, and to this day, I still have to explain to them why I left for such a long period of time. And, sometimes I don't have answers for them. I want to tell them the truth and be forthright with them, but those are questions that I shouldn't have to answer, but I do.
How old are your kids?
My oldest son, Martez, is 7. My oldest daughter, Jada, is 5, and my youngest daughter, London, is 2.
And they're going to have more questions for you, by the way, as they grow.
They keep on coming every day.
But that was what impressed me when I said, what's the toughest thing? I thought he was going to say, well, being away from the limelight or being away from this or not having the money, and it was, being away from my kids. And that was important. And I asked Mike one other question that really, the way he answered it got to me. I said, hey, when you were in Atlanta, you're making $130 million, you got Nike endorsements, you've got Gatorade endorsements, you've got number 7 jerseys being sold all over. Where was the Lord in all that? And you remember what you told me?
And I think I started off by saying, I was so self-centered and so concerned about myself and what I had going on that, I forgot about the Lord. And throughout my life, since I was a young kid, even when I was in high school, I used to try to sit down and read the Bible. And even though I couldn't, ascertain most of the information and understand it, I still tried. And as I got into the NFL, I got drafted, accomplished all the things that I prayed about, I just got away from, my roots and what got me there.
The fundamentals and basics.
Yeah, the fundamentals
life.
and basics. So, I think moving forward, I wanted to implement that back into my life. I thought it was important because, going through, the incarceration period, the only thing I could rely on was my faith in God.
But at the same time, and